We've been talking about mobile phone theft this morning. Got some amazing pictures of the thefts happening in Manchester and in London in particular. People are often on speedy bikes. Viewers saying they've had them stolen from while they're sitting on tube trains. It does feel as though it's a sort of a creeping epidemic.
I think it's going on for quite a long time. I had mine nicked a few years ago. I've never done it since. Walking along on the phone, they cycle past at speed, whacked me with something, and straight out of my hand.
Yes.
And it's horrible. And then, I don't know if what's the worst bit, it's the shock of having it nicked or the terrible inconvenience if you haven't got your mobile phone, because everything's on it.
Yeah, it's a shock, it's a violation, an expense, an inconvenience.
In your space.
I mean, when I use mine now, I've really put my hand around it tightly and I'll put it on my ear on the side that's next to a shop or a building. Yeah. So if anyone comes along a bike, they're not on the outside, but you have to look around. I saw someone eyeing me up on a bus and I had my phone out and I thought, this person is thinking, am I going to nick it? But, everyone's got a phone. What, it's 300, 400, 500 quid, £1,000, whatever it is. It's easy to nick. They're easy to fence. They're easy to sell on.
And it turns out they're easy to sell second-hand and then illegally restart. And it's said, we've been reporting earlier, that particularly in China, there's a kind of huge second-hand market for these phones. And the government is saying, shouldn't the manufacturers do more to have a switch which essentially disables the phone permanently forever?
That would be really good, because that would kill the market.
Like with a debit card, if you lose your debit card, you can make a phone call and it's finished.
Right.
It's only if you don't know it's been stolen you've got a problem.
Yeah. And it's the international market, isn't it? It's interesting because loads of people are emailing in with their stories. Laura said, I had my phone snatched in London in 2021. Within a week, it was in China. Because obviously she must have had Find My Phone on it so you could see where it was. The man was on a Deliveroo bike and the police were uninterested as no violence had been used. And somebody else on X says, my phone was stolen in London, could see on Find My app where it was a week later, but the police refused to go to the address, even though they could see it was there, the police refused to go. A week later, it was in Dubai.
Yeah. So look, they're flying them out. There'll be air freighting them. There's got to be a way, because that figure was 80,000 on the streets. That's 1,600 a week.
It's a lot, isn't it?
I mean, that is a disturbing figure.
Yes, and actually it's really interesting because I'm learning loads of new things about it this morning. OK, so I'm going to do a quick fire. It's a bit like a pub quiz.
Oh, all right, well,
does anybody here know, for a point, what
a pint.
For a pint or a point, what your IMEI number is?
Never heard of it.
That's a big, long number, and I don't know what it means.
You don't know what it means?
No.
Do you know what it means?
I do now, and I do, because I've been sitting next to you for the last half hour and you've been going on at me about it.
35 minutes ago, neither of us knew what it was. Jonathan, any idea?
Yeah, but you need it, but you need your phone to get it.
You need your phone to get it, right. I'm going to tell you what it is.
Or you can ring your provider. Yeah. If you're changing your phone number, you need your EI number.
Right, so your IMEI number is International Mobile Station Equipment Identity, and it's a 15-digit number that identifies the phone, and it can help you block the phone if it's stolen. Do you know how to access it?
No.
No, I feel like I'm being a school teacher.
Number.
I'm going to show you at home this morning. Right, hang on. I better not show you my PIN, because I'm like that. I am like that. I am terrible.
And your bank account details, please.
If you know one date of birth in my family, you know everything. Yeah. That's it. That is terrible. Anyway, right, so you go into your phone. You actually... I know, it's terrible. Do you know, once I did show my address on telly here on my dog's tag. I put my dog in and it was on the tag. Oh, it's terrible. Anyway, here we go. Right, there. So you go into your phone and then you go star, hashtag, 06, and then hashtag. And immediately, well, we've had to blur it out there because they don't trust me. Quite rightly, thank you. So there you can see the barcode comes up. And so now you just take a note of it.
Or a photo, actually. Because on a mobile phone, you can take a photo of what's on the screen.
Yes.
So what, star, hashtag, 06, hashtag.
So who do you contact with that
number?
So
then you can contact the police and your phone provider, and then they can block your phone.
Right.
No?
I don't think the police will care. I'm sorry, they're interested. They weren't interested when my phone was nicked.
No, but
what do you want me to do? They said.
But I understand with everything else they have to do, while it will be considered law down. If you've got violence to deal with, people's houses being broken in.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that in your life, if you are feeling that you're not safe when you walk down the street with your phone, it adds that. You know, when they do the crime survey, what you feel as being safe and what is actually safe can be two very different things.
Yeah.
Your feeling of safety is paramount, which is why what we call low-level crime is often where feelings in neighbourhoods, you begin to think, oh, I don't feel safe down this road.
Yeah,
you might not have even been burgled, but you don't feel safe. And I think that's a terrible thing in society, and it's pervasive.
But I also think with this mobile phone problem, I think these electric scooters, I hate it to say it, are an issue because they come up behind you very fast, you can't hear them, and they can get you.
That's right.
They're a gift for muggers.
Even now, I'd fancy my chances of catching many people if they were on foot. But if somebody's on an electric scooter or a bike, they'll just accelerate away and you've had it.
And we were hearing earlier from the police, they're modifying the electric bikes to then make them go at, unbelievable speeds, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour.
It's incredible.
Well, that's going to be another problem itself.
And they're often on the pavement.
Yes.
Nearly always on the pavement.
And the police are saying that the bikes are, in fact, the root of the problem, that modified bikes were used in almost half of all phone snatch thefts. And over the last year, 325 illegal and uninsured e-bikes and e-scooters have been seized just by city
They're a menace,
police.
and I think they should be regulated. You should have a number plate, and you should have to be insured. That'll get a lot of them off the road. Or off the pavement, more to the point.
Yeah, do you know what... Here's another question, pub quiz question. Anybody know what shoulder surfing is? No, exactly. Anybody?
Looking over your shoulder at your PIN number.
All right. Just... Swaney.
Yeah.
Showing up, being the school... SWAT. So, yes, indeed.
The first time anyone's ever said that about me.
Shoulder surfing is this thing where thieves will just watch over your shoulder as you're... Well, probably someone like me, just walking along, and you just do this, and you put your PIN in, and then they steal it and they know your PIN. I had no idea.
Why do we use phones in the street? We used to manage without them before. When we had no mobile
but
phones. Why do we need to be on them the whole time?
A lot of people are using them for maps. To travel around, or some people are addicted. Others, you're having to reply to messages.
Yes. Well, anyway, there needs to be some sort of kill switch. Is the story this morning, isn't it? In the phones, because at 78,000 a year is just it's everybody knows somebody.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about other things in the news this morning?
We should.
Yes.
I was thinking about the Daily Mail front page. Now Labour are running scared over winter fuel backlash, says the Daily Mail. Starmer's MPs panic over cash blow for 10 million OAPs. That's the winter fuel allowance being taken away by Rachel Reeves as part of her first economic statement back in July. Kevin, there is like a kind of a bit of a theme which is being developed by the Conservatives, by the right-wing media, the right-of-centre media. We saw it yesterday with Keir Starmer. He's asked about Ofsted, and he's asked, are you putting the interests of teachers before the interests of parents? We've had the junior doctors being given a big pay supplement, the railway workers as well, getting pay supplements, but then lower to middle-income pensioners are paying by losing their winter allowance. And the charge is that the Labour government is doing things to deliver for trade unions, for people who've been asking for more pay, and other people are losing out. Yeah, look, the Union Paymasters accusation is a familiar Tory charge. And look, the deal with junior doctors in England, the deal with train drivers, which Hugh Merriman, the former Tory Rail Minister, said he wished he'd been able to do in his below inflation, that pay rise over the 3 years, by the way, with train drivers. The public service workers, 5.5%. I think they're all political choices, and I think they were all the right choices. What is the wrong choice is that, which I think was a big mistake, and it's got people up in arms. I've seen the post bag at the Mirror. It's a Labour supporting paper. Most of our readers voted Labour. The pensioners, among them, feel coldly betrayed by the party they got elected. So it's not saying pay a better pay deal for doctors or railway workers. It's saying, but the people who need to have money taken away are lower income pensioners. Yeah, the £1.5 billion. Look, some of them are on as little as £220 a week. Pension credit
gets you up to about 218, 220. But you get 220, you can have a very small occupational pension. You lose the lot. You go over a cliff. You lose all of what could be up to £300. When energy prices are... It's madness.
Yeah. And also, if you do want to... If you claim your pension credit, the form's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Byzantine in their complexity. 243 questions. That is designed to put people off claiming it.
And I was talking to Claire Barrett, who's the Financial Times consumer rights advocate. We did it on Lorraine, funnily. We did a whole item about how to claim for your pension credit. I mean, this item went on for about 6 minutes. You know, we don't, you know, in TV terms, it takes a long time. And she's a full-on expert, and she was saying that if you're on disability benefit, you're on carer's benefit, you think, well, I'm over the threshold, so why bother? She said it's so confusing because people are just counting themselves out, thinking, I get over £200, well, I'm not eligible, but you are. But we just haven't... The government hasn't explained that to people before taking the fuel payment away. The point the Mail's making, if it's such a good idea, this policy, why is there no debate in the Commons this week about it? Why is there no vote? The government have ducked it.
Look, Gordon Brown introduced...
He did? In his first year as Chancellor.
This Labour government is taking away something another Labour government introduced. When you see videos of Gordon Brown going on about the achievements of the Labour government, and it was before the 2010 election. He was Prime Minister. It's the first one.
In his last speech as Prime Minister to a Labour conference, he listed the achievements of the Labour government, and that was the first thing he talked about, was the winter fuel allowance, and he said, never again will people have to choose between heating and eating. And of course, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, when she was at Oxford, who was her great political hero? Gordon Brown.
His picture on her wall.
In her wall.
But what's interesting is, Kevin, has there been an assessment done of the impact of taking this away?
No.
So there hasn't been done because the question is, why haven't they published it? No. Where is it?
They haven't made it. No. Now, that's because it was announced as a stand-alone cut. One Labour MP said it's suicidal. Normally, you would get this in a budget. You would get it as a package, and then you would see the impact assessment. But it's ironic that the UK Labour government is quite rightly saying that all big financial announcements should, in law, be looked at by the Office for Budget Responsibility. Liz Truss didn't do it with a mini-budget, which went a disaster. So you see the impact. You look at all the sums. But this was just announced as a standalone cut. I think it's... So Labour likes sometimes to be macho and show its own people to then try and later on justify in the budget on October the 30th when capital gains tax goes up for higher earners, when it closes inheritance tax loopholes on the rich. Will say, look, we've all had to suffer. That's going to be the argument. Well, I don't think pensioners are going to say, oh, I feel a bit better losing my 300 quid now because capital gains tax has gone up. And I don't think people who are going to pay more capital gain tax are saying, yeah, I understand why this is happening to me because pensioners have lost 300 quid. You can sometimes get, Ed, you've been there, you can get into government and you can overthink it and think this is a great strategic move, and yet on the street it is received completely differently. And I was on Tyneside last week, and people are furious. Yeah, they're absolutely furious.
It plays into this idea of whose side you're on.
Yeah, talk to a Labour MP privately and ask them what they really think. I can't find a Labour person who supports it.
Well, there's Duncan Jordan, the MP first elected in July, Labour MP. Pool MPs tabled a motion saying that the measure was introduced without prior consultation or an impact assessment, nor with sufficient time to put in place a proper and effective take-up campaign for the pension credit. So this it's not now just grumblings, it's now not just hearsay. This is a tabled motion by one of their own.
And he's an interesting figure, isn't he? Pool MP, Unison, a former trade union official, also involved in the National Pensioners movement. So from Keir Starmer's point of view, you don't want this kind of MP taking this kind of initiative.
It's the amount... In relative terms, the money this is going to save is peanuts.
I wonder if they, to go to Kevin's point about the miscalculation, I wonder if they thought, a universal benefit, going to people who don't really need it, Daily Mail's bound to support it. Well, I wonder if that was their calculation and they got that back.
If they say, we'll go for pensions like the King and Tony Blair, who don't need it, fine. But they're going for people who do need it. And what if we have a cold winter this year? And, of course, the cap on fuel bills has been raised as well. It could cost some pensioners 500 quid this year.
I always like to hear Andrew defend the welfare state.
Daily Mail's been a long supporter of the welfare state when it's targeted properly.
But it rather comes down to visions as well, right? Because the cost of it is loose change down the back of the sofa in a $2.5 trillion economy. Yeah. But it's whether you want progressive taxation. The more you earn, the wealthier you are, you pay progressively higher rates of tax and you contribute. But then you have a universal welfare state where we all get something back. Now, if you're going to say you don't want a universal welfare state and you think all these pensioners are not on pension credit, well, they're going to lose this, well, what are you going to do about their free bus passes? What are you going to do about their state pensions? What are you going to do about their free NHS care? Well, they're taken away. They're now means... The Labour are going to means test the winter fuel allowance exactly the way the Tories means tested Gordon Brown's free TV licence for the over 75. And Labour made a huge, angry campaign against what the Tories did on those TV licences.
Who'd have thought 2 months
it doesn't make
into
sense.
a Labour government, who'd have thought it? We'd have charities saying people are going to have to choose between heating and eating. Who'd have thought it? Is that what people voted for with Labour?
We've got the Defence Secretary, John Healey, Defence Secretary, coming on.
Well, I'm looking forward to him wriggling.
We'll ask him about this. We can also ask him about the decision the government announced yesterday, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, to suspend a proportion of licences for selling arms to Israel, which has had a pretty sharp response from certainly from the chief rabbi, who was kind of appalled. What do you think was the motive for David Lammy announcing this yesterday?
The legal position. It's the bare minimum. It's 30 of 350. It's basically bits going to drones.
The legal position is
the legal position
that they can't sell any arms to Israel, which might be being used in Gaza in a activity which would be
breaching international humanitarian law and also the detention of Palestinians. It was a heinous crime by Hamas on October the 7th, and the people they killed, the people they raped, and the taking of the hostages. But Israel is accused of taking many Palestinians hostage. Some are accused of them being raped in captivity, brutally beaten, and some killed too. Now, there's legal advice. The last government will have had the legal advice. It hasn't acted on it.
So is this a moral stance, or is this just but is this a sort of legal stance?
I think it's legal, then that becomes moral, and it's political, probably greater than the military impact.
It's partly political because of the huge problem in the Labour Party that's not supporting an unconditional ceasefire in Gaza, and we saw 5 independent Muslim MPs winning in Labour strongholds
but the
on the basis of Gaza.
I mean, we had the 6 hostages murdered by Hamas at the weekend. As the chief rabbi said, he said it beggars belief that it's announced this at the very moment when 6 hostages murdered in cold blood by cruel terrorists were being buried by their families. Yeah, I just wonder, though, is there also something else happening here, which is that the Americans are clearly pressurising the Israelis to agree to a ceasefire, which the Israelis don't want to agree to. Is it helpful to America for Britain to do something America hasn't done yet, which is to suspend some arms sales, to sort of ratchet the pressure up on Netanyahu and say, if you don't respond to a move towards peace, then the international community is going to be tougher with you?
I think yes, because the International Criminal Court, of course, is considering arrest warrants for Hamas leaders, but also Benjamin Netanyahu, and I think it's his defence secretary. So the pressure is ratcheting up. The only other European countries I can think that have got arms embargoes are Spain and Belgium. We supply very little. It's about way under 1% of Israel's arms, and I think it was 42 million quid the last annual figure I could see. But if the equipment is being used and is thought to be used to breach international law, you cannot supply it legally.
And other countries have done it.
Yeah, but Keir Starmer is making, following the law, a huge part of his route.
This is the lawyer.
Yeah, I think he's right to do that.
And General will be saying,
and look,
you've got no choice.
And you're right. If Hamas executed those 6 hostages, shot them in the head, as we fear, that is absolutely horrific. That is a war crime.
And does David
dozens of Palestinians were also killed by the Israelis.
Yeah, well,
It's a dreadful, horrible, brutal numbers
Terrible.
game. It's just... It's,
Well,
it's
look,
all, not, but you know what I mean? It's always...
And there's still, remember, dozens of
doesn't work
Israeli
that way.
hostages still
Yes,
since
but just to be
October.
clear in context, that, as David Lammy said, we don't take this decision lightly, but Belgium, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Canada, Italy
more
and
than I
Spain have
thought.
already taken action
More than I thought,
to
yeah.
suspend or restrict some export licences to Israel. So there is a
this question of hostages, and 250 people were seized. The biggest release was in the ceasefire back last.
And you know, we say
last year, more than 100.
Yeah, but
the number freed has been a lot.
But Hamas don't want a ceasefire. They want the war to continue because they want to eradicate Israel off the map.
Yeah, and Israel wants to eradicate Hamas.
When we say Israel, we mean it's not the Israeli people. We saw the mass protest yesterday. Those incredible
there's a general
pictures.
strike now.
Tel Aviv, the general strike across the normal Israeli families are hurting.
Yeah,
they are in visceral pain.
Yeah.
They have suffered absolutely horrifically, and they are not happy with their own government.
No.
We're not alone. No, this is the Israeli people themselves, the ones who have suffered the most on their side.
Well, the Hamas attack should never have happened in the first place. Because they were asleep at the wheel.
We are
it's a vibrant democracy, Israel.
We are almost out of time, but in a jarring shift of tone. We've got coming up on the programme later on Joe Wicks, fitness guru.
Don't worry, you're not going to have to run a mile, Andrew.
Joe Wicks, fitness guru. This is what he did. He filmed on his way to a Taylor Swift concert a week or so ago.
It tastes really sweet. It's like a natural sweet, like vanilla milk. No wonder babies love sugar and sweet stuff. Down the hatch. So unoffensive.
And she had excess breast milk, and Joe Wicks decided... What do you think, Andrew? Will it catch on?
Don't ask me. I'm not the best person. Very odd. That's all I can say. Seems very strange to me.
I mean, waste not, want not, but no, not for me, no. Dear me.
Peculiar.
Apparently it's got a lot... Well, I mean, as
Can
you know,
I say,
babies
to
need
silence
it.
Andrew Pearce, it's an achievement.
When I heard it on your news, I thought, what?
You can call Joe Wicks a big baby. I mean, I'm just thinking of those scenes in Little Britain.
I know.
Where, you know the scene? I know.
Yes,
I can remember 20 years ago, Tony Blair and Cherie Blair in Downing Street just had a baby. A senior editor of a national newspaper, I'm not going to say who, invited for dinner. Cherie Blair breastfed at the table, and this editor was so appalled and shocked how terrible this was.
Was it Dacre?
I'm not going to say who
was it his edit?
I'm not going to say who it was. Feels terribly out of date now. Is drinking breast milk the next frontier? I mean, breastfeeding in public, fine.
Breastfeeding goes on in public all the time. I have no idea who that
I've got a feeling
was.
that Cherie Blair knew exactly what she was doing.
Exactly.
That wasn't done by accident, was it? She knew. She knew.
I'm not saying who the editor was. I'm not going to say.
May I just say, though, but breastfeeding in public or wherever is perfectly natural.
This is the new version of it.
Doesn't bother me.
Men drinking breast milk is a little weird.
He's desperate for publicity.
Oh, well, he's going to be on the show. You can find out.
Well, I'm sorry.
The big baby.